Hello, welcome to the Jamhuri Day 2024 special edition. I'm going to remind you what this holiday is all about. Welcome. Jamhuri Day or Independence Day is a Kenyan holiday. We celebrate the holiday on 12th December every year to commemorate the country's independence from the British colonial rule and the establishment of the Republic of Kenya on the 12th of December 1964. Jamhuri is a Swahili word for republic. The holiday is very important to Kenyans because on 12th December 1963, Kenya became an independent country. But before independence, previously in the same year, on 1st June 1963, was the Madaraka Day, whereby Kenya had gained internal self-rule from the United Kingdom. Kenya later became a republic with the inauguration of Jomo Kenyatta as the president, which took place on 12th December 1964, exactly 1 year after Kenya attained its independence in 1963. Kenyatta, having previously been sworn in as Prime Minister, continued as Prime Minister of the newly independent Kenya before assuming the position of President 1 year after Independence Day. Previously, Kenya became a British colony in 1920. The colonial administration opposed African demands for a greater role in the political process, and it was not until 1944 that an African was included in the colony's legislature. Disputes over land and cultural traditions continued, and the movement against colonial rule grew, which led to the Mau Mau rebellion in the 1950s. A formal state of emergency was declared by Governor Sir Evelyn Baring in October 1952, leading to members of the Mau Mau Association like Jomo Kenyatta to be detained by the authorities. The main causes of the Mau Mau uprisings were: 1. The British colonial government gave Kikuyu land to white settlers. 2. They were opposing the colonial rule. 3. The Mau Mau movement also fought against low wages, fewer education opportunities, and racist policies such as the prohibition of female circumcision. However, the war triggered some changes, Africans gained some social and economic privileges as a result of the uprisings. African political representation increased in the early 1960s. Kenya gained independence on December 12, 1963, and became a republic a year later, with Jomo Kenyatta as its president. And because Jamhuri Day has such historical significance, virtually every Kenyan celebrates the holiday to some extent. Celebrations include feasts, political speeches, parades, and dancing. As has been recorded in the country's political history, Jaramogi Oginga Odinga turned down a request by the colonial power brokers to form a government and ascend to power as prime minister, as Mzee Kenyatta languished in prison. In a move that shocked the British government, Oginga Odinga outrightly rejected the offer, declaring that there would be no independence without Kenyatta, whom he described as the undisputed leader of the African people. Kenyans attempted to gain more direct representation in colonial politics. At the outset, political pressure groups developed along ethnic lines. The first one being the Young Kikuyu Association, later the East African Association, established in 1921 with Harry Thuku as its first president. The group, which received most of its support from young men, was not supported by most of the older chiefs. The group demanded African representation in the legislature and won support among the Kikuyu when it complained about low wages, the prohibition of coffee growing, and the condemnation of such traditional practices as female genital cutting. At a protest in March 1922, Harithuku was arrested and eventually he was exiled for more than 8 years. While the East African Association had been banned after Thuku's arrest, a new association, the Kikuyu Central Association, emerged, with Jomo Kenyatta as its general secretary, beginning in 1928. Kenyatta, who advocated a peaceful transition to African majority rule, traveled widely in Europe and returned in 1946 to become the president of Kenya National Union, founded in 1944. There were, however, Africans in the colony who felt that Kenyatta's tactics were not producing enough concrete results. One such group which advocated a violent approach, became known as the Mau Mau. The actions attributed to the Mau Mau caused the colonial government to proclaim a state of emergency from October 1952 to 1960, resulted in a massive relocation of Africans, particularly Kikuyu. Kenyatta and other Africans were charged with directing the Mau Mau movement and sentenced in 1953 to 7 years imprisonment. Kenyatta was released in prison in 1959, but was then confined to his home. Although the leadership of KANU had been arrested, the party was not immediately banned because the government hoped that new leadership might provide a more moderate approach. However, this was not forthcoming. African political organizations were not allowed again until 1960. The Kenya African National Union, KANU, was founded in May of that year, and it was favoring a strong centralized government. Nevertheless, in June, two of its founding members, Ronald Ngala and Daniel Arap Moi, created their own organization. A coalition government of the two parties was formed, the Kenya African Democratic Union, KADU. Most KADU members had transferred their allegiance to KANU. Following further discussions in London in 1962, Kenya became fully independent on December 12, 1963. Then, a year later, Kenya became a republic, with Kenyatta as its first president and Jaramogi Oginga Odinga as the deputy president, and KADU ceased to exist.